Hi, Algebra 1. What you need in front of you is you need your tile pattern investigation note sheet. Looks like this, okay? If you were not here or you didn't get one or you can't find yours, don't worry. All you have to do is get a blank piece of paper and you've got it. All right. Welcome to chapter 2. This is all about lines and linear relationships. And you guys know quite a bit about lines, and we're just going to extend the knowledge that you have. So before we just jump right into the algebra, we're going to start with our tile patterns. Now, if you've been in our district for a while, you've done a lot of these tile patterns. So take a look at your graph notes, that the page that has the graph paper, and you'll see figure 1, figure 2, and figure 3. I want you guys to take a look at this, and we're going to answer a couple questions about this pattern. So it says, where are the tiles being added each time? We'll really look at that, and you can see in figure 1, and then when I go to figure 2, I've added one box right here on the left, and I've added 2 on the right. Okay? So let's take a look at figure 3. Again, I've added another one on the left, and I've added 2 on to the right. So I'm, in essence, adding 3 each time. Okay, I'm adding 3 each time, but notice that question 1 is asking, where are the tiles being added with each new figure? So in your notes, make sure you're writing this down. One tile is added to the left side, and 2 tiles are added to the right side. And if you want to call them towers instead of sides, that's fine, or the long one, it's okay. So make sure you pause the video and you write down that answer for question 1. All right, let's take a look at question 2. I'm going to do question 2 and 3 together, just so we can understand. Well, we just figured out that we're adding 3 tiles each time and where they're adding. Now, I'm not going to draw individually figure 4, but I am going to show you what it would look like. So we know that we add 1 on the left, and we added 2 on the right. There it is. So your number 4 should look exactly like this, and label it figure 4. It looks exactly like that with all of those boxes there. Okay, pause your video and make sure that you have those figure 4s in your notes. Okay, so I said I was going to do figure 4 and figure 0 together. So we know that we're always adding 3. Each time I move to a new figure, I've added 3 tiles. So can we work backwards? Because this one is asking us to do figure 0. So in Algebra 1, you can, any algebra, you can work forward and backwards, and you're going to see this a lot in our tables. But if I was always adding 3 this way, what do you have to do to take a step backwards? I know somebody out there said it. Don't be afraid to talk to your computer, guys. Yeah, you're right. You would be subtracting 3. So figure 1 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, figure 1 has 7 tiles. I subtract 3 and I have 4. And so figure 0 looks like 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to highlight those original 4 in our tiles so you can see what this looks like. So there are the original 4. And notice the original 4 show up quite a bit. That original 4, there it is. Oh, look at this. That original 4 again shows up here. So that original 4, ooh, that was a bad coloring there. Figure 3 will have the original 4. The next figure will have those red blocks. So figure 4, make sure it's sketched, and make sure figure 0 is sketched. Okay. This one asks you to figure out I'm going to do 4 and 5 again together. So it says, how many tiles would be in figure 100? And then describe in words what that figure 100 would look like. So I'm going to think about how many tiles would be first. So right here, remember I just got done saying, here is the original 4. So figure 0 we found out was 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the original 4. And then I go 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the original 4 again. Now, we're adding 3 each time. Okay, each time I go to a figure, that 4 continues, but now I've added 1 on the left and 2 on the right. I've added 1 on the left and 2 on the right. So let's say we do that out to 100. Okay, so that means I would have added 1 of these. Well, there's the original 4, and I would have added 1. Okay, then there would be another 1, and then another 1. There's 3. If I do that 100 times, I would have 100 tiles on that left-hand side. Okay, but that's not all I have. So then notice I would have on the right-hand side, there was my 1, but then I added 2. Well, the original 4 is out here. Then I've added 2, so there's my first 2, and I've added another 2, and I've added another 2, and I did that 100 times. Well, I just now have 200 on that right-hand side. But here's what you can't forget. You can't forget that figure 0, because the original 4 you have to always think about. So that original 4 carries with it. And so that means you'd have 304. So how are you going to describe that in words? Well, if I remember, this has to be a description. You can't just say, I got 304 tiles. No, describe what it would look like. So my description might be something like this. 4 tiles in the middle, okay? 100 tiles on the left side, and 200 tiles on the right side. Okay, that would be good enough. I mean, I have the picture. I understand what you mean by the left side and the right side, and I can see in your drawing where that original 4 is. So that's a great way to describe in words what that looks like. Okay, so we have one last piece. And this is the hardest piece because this is the algebraic piece. So now can we write an equation in terms of y and x? Meaning I want to put in 500 tiles. I want to put in 1,000 tiles. So can I put that in for x and immediately get how many tiles? So again, let's go back here. And remember, I am always adding 3. So that plus 3 is really important for our formula. Okay, or our equation. And then down here I had my figure 0. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So figure 0 is also really important. So together, those two are going to create our y's and our mx and b's. If you remember that, that's all we're doing. So when you answer this guy, it'll be y. Oh, what happened here? Y equals, now my 3 times my x, that's my growth rate. How many times am I adding 3? Plus the original 4. Your figure 0 is always your starting point, and you got to put that into your equation. You always have to tell us. Now let's plug in 100. Does that work? Sure. 3 times 100 is 300 plus 4. There's your 304 from question number 5. But let's say I asked for 20. Okay. Well, 3 times 20 would give me 60 plus 4, 64. So now you can figure out how many tiles are any figure number just by plugging in for x. All right, at any point, if you are confused, okay, stop this video, rework it, make sure all of your notes are filled in. Because what you're going to do is you're going to do pattern B on your own. So you need to answer questions 1 through 6 for pattern B. pause the video here and answer those 6 questions. We'll be checking and going over these part of your notes in your next in-person class day. All right, now that you have finished pattern B, let's move on to pattern C. Now, pattern C is different because there's no picture. And that's the thing about Algebra 1 you're going to have to get used to. Sometimes there's a picture, sometimes there's words, sometimes there's an equation, sometimes there's a table. Whatever format we give you, you have to be able to find the other formats, or you have to be able to see it in a different way. So don't be shocked when we don't give you a picture and we give you a table. It really means the same thing. It's just another way to see it. So we're given a table, and we're told that the equation is 2x plus 1. So I'm not sure like how we're going to find all this out. So let's just look at it and say, by how many tiles is pattern C growing? Well, I have to finish filling this in. So let's fill that in first before we do this. Okay. So when I fill this in, if I'm not sure what to do, well, let's just plug in some values. So if I plug in 0 for x, I just plug that in. Oh, that looks a lot like your last short cycle. Okay, you get 2 times 0, 0, plus 1 is 1. So when at figure 0, I have 1 tile. Okay, let's try another one. So I do y equals 2. Now I'm just plugging in for x. My next input is 1. So I plug in 1 plus 1. So 2 times 1 is 1 plus 1 is 3. And I'll just make all of these in red. Okay, so far I have 1, 3. Okay, let's plug in another one. So y equals 2 times 2 plus 1. Now 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So I know my input is 2, my output is 5. Or when my figure number is 2, I have 5 tiles. So many different ways to think about this. Okay, let's do the last two. Y equals 2 times 3. Oh, that's a bad looking 3, sorry guys. Plus 1. So 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Right? Now at this point, maybe you're like, I don't want to plug in 4 because I see a pattern. So stop. Do you see a pattern? Well, let's take a look. You've got 1, 3, 5, 7. What's the pattern? What are you adding to 1 to get to 3? What are you adding to 3 to get to 5? Is it the same number to get to 7? Absolutely. So we know, and you can verify this, our next one would be 9. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So now we can answer this first question. By what is our pattern growing by? Well, it looks like my pattern here is growing by 2's. Okay, so I'm going to do a big plus 2 here, and my pattern is I'm growing by 2. So please put plus 2. If you just put 2, I don't know if you're adding 2 or subtracting 2, so put plus 2. Okay. Let's take a look at this second question. Where do you look in the table to see the starting point? Well, where in that table do you see the starting point? And remember, the other word for starting point is the 0 figure. So how many tiles are in figure 0? Yeah, you guys got it right here. Okay, that's our starting point. When x is 0, or when you have figure 0, you have 1 tile. So you look in the table when x equals 0. So yeah, I want you to be that specific. Okay, in the table when x equals 0, y, the starting point, sorry, will be when x equals 0. Okay, Make sure you pause the video here and see if you can finish these notes up to this point. Make sure you have both question 1 and 2 in your notes. So when you plug in, okay, when you finish your table, the pattern is growing by +2. And where do you look in the table? You look when x is equal to 0. Okay, wherein do you look to see the growth? So that was 1. Oh, I didn't want that one, sorry. We wanted 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Okay, the growth was the +2, right? That's what we decided. Our pattern is growing by 2 tiles each time. Notice where that is. That's the pattern in the Y. Okay, now we're going to add on to that in the next coming lessons, but for right now, look at where the +2 is. It's not really in the table, it's the pattern on the Y side of that table. That's where we found it. Okay, so here, where do you look in the table to see the growth? Okay, so the growth are in the table. The growth, ooh, is the pattern in the Y, and I'm going to put Y. So in the table, the growth is the pattern on that Y side. How am I getting from one figure number to the other? Well, I'm adding 2, adding 2, adding 2. That's where you see the growth. So the starting point, and I'm going to remind you, starting point, it is a point. So right here is the starting point when x equals 0. So in the table, that's the important. And then the pattern tells us that growth. Okay, let's answer that last couple of questions. All right, I'm going to answer 4 and 5 together. So we know from question 2 that the starting point is 1 and the growth is 2. Well, where do you see that in the equation? So I'm going to highlight, this is the equation. Where do you see the growth in the equation? And then where do you see the y-intercept in the equation? Okay, well, hopefully you can see it where the 2 and the 1 are. So let's write out some answers here. Okay. Oh, I don't like it, the yellow. Hang on. So the growth is by the x. Okay. Notice in the equation. Notice where that growth is. That 2 is right here. It's right next to the x. Okay. But now we need to figure out where is the y-intercept, or where is the starting point? The starting point in the equation is that plus my number at the end, is the number at the end of the equation. You want to write something like that, okay? So you're going to have to find where is the growth and where is the starting point on all of these. Well, I don't want that. All right, let me do an erase here, okay? So make sure you've paused the video here and you have written down that the starting point is that n number and the growth is the number right next to the x, okay? All right, last question, guys. And this is for pattern D. So pattern D, you will, if you look at your notes, you've been given a table. So there's only 3 questions to this one, but I want you to think about what would figure 0 look like and what would figure 4 look like. Draw those out, write an equation for those tile patterns, and then make a table. See if you can make a table like we did for part C. Again, this one is on your own. We will be checking pattern B and pattern D in class together. So make sure you have this done before your next in-class day. Thanks for joining me, Algebra 1, and we will be seeing you